Welcome to the Catholic Midlife Podcast, where we address the challenges and the opportunities of midlife from a uniquely Catholic perspective. This is the time, my friends, for a deeper renewal of your Christian vocation. Come and enter into the freedom of Christ that allows you to be the person you were created to be. Because there's an amazing, awesome, exciting next season of life waiting for you. Hello, and welcome to the Catholic Midlife Podcast. I'm Karen. I'm here with Curtis.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
And Curtis, you may or may not realize this is our 100th episode.
Oh, the big 100.
Yeah, woohoo! We did it. We got to 100.
Wow.
It's
That's
amazing.
really great.
Yeah, we're so grateful to all of our listeners who have been with us along this journey. Whether or not you've listened to all 100 episodes, we appreciate you. And it is just a joy to be here with you.
I really do appreciate our listeners. I've gotten so many great comments, and I'm always I'm really honored by people listening in and responding to us. And I've been pretty impressed, actually, by the caliber of the listener as well.
We have great listeners, so thank you all for being with us.
Speaking of listeners, we did have a comment. A lady sent this in. She said, "I am so grateful. I was listening to your episode about reframing. It was so good. Thank you." And she's referring to episode 93, Reframe in Life to Get a Superior Angle.
Ooh, good title, Curtis. I think you came up with that one.
Got to get the angle on it. And we are going to bring the angle big time today. This is such an important, I call it a habit or a skill or a virtue or an integrating principle. This is big, and it is living in the present moment.
Ooh. It's big. It's also could feel somewhat ambiguous sometimes. What does it really mean to live in the present moment? But the bigger question I have, Curtis, is why do we want to live in the present moment?
Why? Well, there's a lot of benefits. For one thing, it brings interior peace. Now, there's a lot of things you need to have peace, but living in the present, I call it integrating because it helps bring those things together to integrate your life and to reach for interior peace.
So in a way, it keeps us from worry about the future and rumination and anxiety and regret about the past. Would that be true?
Well, it keeps all those things at bay. And as anybody who's ever had anxiety or a lot of rumination, that'll suck you down pretty quickly.
Yes.
And distract you. Whereas as Christians, we're always trying to discern. That's a great Christian word. Oh, I've got to go discern that.
It's so true.
But discernment, we need to have peace. We need to have interior peace. We need to be present in the moment because, well, that's where God is present in his creation now.
Well, I think that's a really good point, Curtis, that really God is only in the present. That's where the Holy Spirit is. That's where the grace is for the moment. It's not in the past. It's not in the future. It's in the right now. And it's where we can find all the resources we need and all the power to enter into whatever situation in life God is calling us to.
It's like that old saying, God is never early. He's never late. He's always just in time.
Just in time.
And we don't always like that approach.
That's for sure.
However, here he is in the present moment.
I feel like another thing about the present is when you're in the present, you're really living in trust. You're entrusting the past to God's mercy and his capacity to draw good from all things. You're trusting the future to his providence and just doing what is required today, what is needed today. And that's where we receive the grace to do what God is calling us to today.
There's a key word in there, trust.
Right.
Trust takes a lot of hope. These are some of the most important things we have as Christians. To be able to trust in God, really, that's most of my problems right there, is a lack of trust.
Mm-hmm. So is it that I bring trust and hope and that helps me live in the present? Or as I practice living in the present, my hope and my trust get stronger? Or as I'm saying this, I'm thinking it's probably both.
Yeah, it's both. But clearly, in my experience, you're trying to live in the present, man, that takes a lot of trust. It takes a lot of trust in God's power and his promises and his mercy and everything else. And wow, trust can be hard to come by sometimes. And that's why, well, wait a minute, trying to live in the present, it's helping me kind of dig for that virtue or state of being.
I could really see why that whole relationship with the present is what's needed to create this sense of peace and really surrender to life and the times of life.
We've been talking about time the last couple of episodes, Karen, and living in the present. Really, it's a way of letting God be the master of your timeline, meaning your past and its story and your future and the story that's unfolding there. Living in the present, it's closer to this eternal view of time as opposed to time as a commodity. It's kind of like this axis. On one hand, time is this very limited, constraining commodity, and then eternity is on the other axis. And living in the present it's just more of an eternal view.
Are you saying kind of that when you can live in the present, really you can open yourself up more to this realm of eternity and the place where God is?
It's a more transcendent way of being. It really is. Because we're bringing all these great things into play in our relationship with God. And I keep talking about trust and hope, and those are where we start, I think.
Right. So what really is living in the present? I feel like I hear about it in a lot of contexts all over, and some are Christian and some are not. And also, it is a very Christian idea, living in the present moment. What is it even?
What is it? Well, in a lot of ways, it's like any other virtue or habit. It's the experience that tells you the most. But I think the capacity to put your focus and your energy and your thoughts into what's before you, to bring your full self to your life, to be present in your life, that is living in the present moment.
That makes a lot of sense to me, Curtis. I feel like I spend a lot of time and energy in life trying to ward off things I think might happen that I don't want. And on the one hand, having prudence to make good decisions is one thing, but prudence, I don't think, lives in the future. It really lives in the here and now and says, what's the best decision for me right now in this situation? And the situation is always unique and unrepeatable. So it's kind of like sometimes I can let worry about the future determine my decisions, but that's not prudence. Whereas living in the present focuses more on what is happening right now, what do I want for now, and putting my energy there.
Well, that intrigues me, Karen, to say that prudence lives in the presence. I don't disagree. I never would have thought of that, really.
Yeah.
I tend to think of prudence as planning, but really often it comes down to priorities.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what you were saying, that somehow this living in the present moment can give some order and structure to how I approach other virtues.
And present, it's such an interesting word. It has a space and a time dimension. So we talk about the present moment, that's time. That's chronological time. Like right now, that's the present. But we also talk about being present. He's present. God is present. I am presenting myself to such a person. That's a physical location. So living in the present moment has this time and space dimension, and it's so important when we're trying to have a relationship with the Holy Spirit, who is, in fact, always near us and is always present in time and space.
Right. Would you say there's a choice component to living in the present? Almost like I'm choosing this moment right now. I'm choosing to do this and not something else. I'm choosing to take this one thing in hand and bring my whole self to it.
Yes, there's a lot of redirecting your attention and focus to the present.
Sure. So it is kind of a habit of choosing to determine my focus and bring myself back to what is at hand.
Absolutely. And of course, there's always time to reflect on the future or to reflect on the past and to get outside of time and look at things and think them over. However, that time can overwhelm our life.
Right.
That's why redirecting ourselves to the present moment is often what we need.
It almost sounds like it's an antidote to anxiety.
Very much so. So, Karen, that's the big thing in my own life, thinking about anxieties and fears of the future and the past and regarding the people around me and this crazy society we live in and what's going to happen. All those things can easily dominate my mind, which is always looking for problems to solve,
right,
and obstacles to overcome. It's serving me very well. However, I need to give it a little more direction than that and bring it back to, that's great. There's a time and place for all that stuff. Now is the time and place for me to live in my body, to live in the present, to be in the moment.
I'm starting to see how this is a particularly powerful practice for our current age, which is very anxiety driven. I mean, we really live in an anxious age and a fear-filled age, and it can very easily really get in there and start to occupy more and more of our focus and energy.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's an anxious age, and there's things to be anxious about. But let's redirect ourselves to the present moment.
Right. So, Curtis, do you have a good example of what maybe it feels like to make a choice to live in the present moment? I'm hoping you do.
Well, it's tricky to give examples, but let's try this one. I remember very vividly, Karen, walking out of my hotel in South Padre Island and discovering that my car at my hotel where I was paying to stay had towed my car.
What?
They just whisked it away right in the middle of the night.
The hotel did that?
They did. Anyway, I could tell you all the things they did wrong. And I was very focused on that in the moment and what I might say to the manager. But I did decide, look, I'm here with a family member. We're trying to get some things accomplished in our relationship by spending this time together. And I'm not going to let it ruin my day. It might ruin my credit card, but it's not going to ruin my day. I got an Uber to the towing compound, which is always such a joyful experience. But I just decided I was going to be super nice to this guy, whoever he was, because I've seen how ugly that retrieving your car from the towing compound can be.
Right.
And actually, I had a pretty hilarious conversation with this guy because he kept showing me this printed form. He didn't speak any English. And the form said, if you want your car, show proof of insurance. But I had a rental car and I wasn't able to find any proof of insurance. So I was trying to pantomime this thing at doing all those dreadful, gringo things like rental, speak loud and slow in English, as if that, would serve any purpose.
Yes.
But I got the car. He finally took a photo of the key fob.
Okay.
And put it in his file. Somehow that seemed to satisfy him.
Yeah.
I guess if his boss were going to ask him. So I got my car and I gave him a big salute as I was driving away. That seemed to really crack him up.
Sure. So it sounds like instead of just having all your energy on, if only the hotel hadn't been so stupid and towed its own, customer's car blah, 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 blah. And you weren't thinking ahead to all of the things that you could say to them or all of the consequences of this. You were just able to say, I'm here, I'm with this guy, I'm going to have a positive interaction, I'm going to get the car and fulfill what I need to fulfill.
Exactly. And redirecting my mind, my focus to the present moment, then I was able to decide, oh, wait a minute, here's an appropriate way for me to act.
Yeah.
Is let's have some charity and a little joy for this situation.
Yeah.
And it's good for everyone. And that's the whole thing about these kinds of skills is it's great for me. And all of a sudden, when I'm getting it together, then I'm somebody you want to live with.
Right.
And that's why so often the most important thing we can do for the people around us, the people we love the most, is focus on pulling it together in our life and having some peace and some trust in God and some joy and hope and being able to be the peacemaker and be the people we can be.
It almost sounds like practicing the skill in those smaller moments, like the car rental, towing, it really opens up some capacity to do the same thing when there's really big moments, when you lose your job, when you're looking at a semi-crisis in your family and wondering how it's all going to come out.
Well, Karen, this is really where you shine. Is say there's a situation where we're really worried about a family member and thinking about all the things that could happen. You're not catastrophizing. You're not borrowing trouble from the future. You're focused on the present moment, and it lets you problem solve or be prudent in how you choose to act instead of maybe avoiding it or lashing out or something like that.
Right. Or trying to respond to a whole bunch of stuff that may or may not actually happen. I think that you just made a really interesting point, which is when you can live in the present moment, you're actually, the problem solving is better because you can see more opportunities in the present because you're actually looking at the present. You're not focused on the past or focused on the future. And so it's almost like you have more vision for the present.
And it's a reason why so many people talk about the skill of living in the present moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So Curtis, what's a good way to practice living in the present?
Well, you practice it, Karen.
Yeah.
But how about a little exercise?
Yes. I think that's what I was looking for. Is there something I can do to be like, this is going to help me do this better?
Okay, well, let's do the exercise. So I invite everyone, and of course, if you're flying your attack helicopter over the Gulf somewhere, this is probably not a good time for you to do this exercise, but otherwise, use your judgment.
Okay.
So take a breath.
Okay.
We're going to let it out slowly. Just do that a couple of times. It's going to help relax your body. If you're sitting, you can kind of sit up in a relaxed way. You could put your feet on the floor. So we're taking another breath. And you could take a few moments simply to reconnect with your body, to maybe feel your feet on the ground. Or if you're walking, focus on walking and feeling the ground through your feet. We're simply focusing more on our body instead of the abstract world. Now that you've relaxed just a little bit, you could see yourself standing where you are now in your time. So here's your life. It's like a big line, a timeline, and you could turn your gaze towards the future at a high level. You can see it stretching out there. And simply let go of your plans and problems as you look at that and think, it's good for me to focus on the present moment at this time. And it's fine. I give myself permission to surrender my concerns about that future for a while. God is the master of time. He is present to us. We're trusting His eternal plans for us. There's a future He's promised us where all is well, a future in the new creation. We're entrusting our future to God. God, I entrust my future. God, I entrust our future to you. I release the future to you. Now, imagine feeling your feet again where you are now in your time, and feel your body turning towards your past, looking over that time, stretching behind you. I think of like a big train with a lot of cars. I'm just looking back over it, casting my gaze across that, and oh, I know there's some moments lurking back there. Some regrets, some suffering, or even grief and losses, maybe things that can't be simply set aside, but I could let them be and simply live with them in the present. If this is stirring something up, you might show a little compassion to yourself and say, I'm suffering now. I have this grief, or I have this regret now. As we look across that timeline, we can entrust our past to God. God is very merciful. I always think how if I can love my children and be merciful, well, how much better can God love me? Remarkably. God is always with us in our past and now. We entrust our past to you, Lord, to your mercy, to your beautiful justice that reconciles all things to you, including our past. God, I entrust the past to you. I release the past to you. I'm releasing all time to you, Heavenly Father. You are my King. You're my champion, the font of compassion. Now, here I am in the present moment, and I invite you to just take a mental snapshot of how your body feels in this state of mind as you kind of return more to the outside world. And you've released your past, you've released your future, you've entrusted those things. And for now, you're going to be right here in the present moment. So, Karen, I watched you do the exercise. Is there an image that comes up for you as you kind of come out of that state of relaxation?
Well, I really liked the timeline image. I felt like it was a nice way to just imagine all of that and then release it. And that really helped me then to put my focus and energy on the now. I think you gave me a nice way to imagine myself, even something I can use in any kind of a moment, just to imagine the timeline and then to release so that I can focus on the now. So I really like that. Thank you.
What helps me about the train car image that works for me, it's not too detailed.
Yeah.
I don't need to get into all those details, but I can think about the big picture. And that's a way to do that. There may be other ways that people would do it their own visualization. Karen, speaking of time, can you wrap this up for us?
Yes, it's time. Well, here's a couple of my takeaways. One is I think I'm going to take away that image from your meditation so that I can utilize it when I'm in a situation where I really want to focus on the present. I also feel like that point about God is only in the now He's only here in the present, and that's where grace is. That's where the Holy Spirit is. That's where God is present. I'm going to really take that image with me also, that I'm trying to meet God here, and this is where he is in the present. And the other thing that's coming to me is I feel like there's something I heard once from the secular world. Maybe it was a secular coach who said, you just have this choice to make, and you need to decide, is the universe on your side or not? Is God with me? And that came to mind for me as we were going through this episode, is remember, God is with us. God is for us. I think that you use that word. He's our champion. And so when I look to the present, God will be there. He's on my side. He's here and he's for me.
Thanks for that wrap up, Karen.
You're
really
welcome.
Appreciate your insights. My friends, Karen is teaching a self-compassion course. It's coming up soon. There is some space. You can go to thecatholicmidlife.com to find the information, to learn more, to check out the dates, and learn how to find out all the details that you're going to want to know as you get ready to take a self-compassion course from Karen, who has been very well received indeed by her students. Thanks for being here with us. The Catholic Midlife Podcast is for anyone that wants to receive the abundance of life that God has for each one of us. Take a moment right now to tell a friend about us.